What is up, everybody? It is me. I am Steve Thomas at choiceminis on your social media of choice. And tonight, as always, I am joined by my co-host, the planter of trees, wearer of the shortiest of shorts, Adam Grimm, beach_vacation_Mando on Instagram. What is up, my brother?
Not much. I am just chilly and sleepy, both at the same time.
Chilly and sleepy. That sounds about where I was at most of today. I'm not going to lie to you. I got my 5G installed last night and it wiped me. It wiped me right out. I would suggest everybody do it. My left shoulder's a little dead still, but like, still better than COVID.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun going to work after that.
Yeah, I can honestly say that it is not going to be the greatest of times for anybody involved. If you got a physical labor job, going back to work after getting your COVID vaccine, definitely not everybody's idea of a great time. Definitely not everybody's idea of a great time. So,
Probably gonna be fairly miserable.
Yeah, well, it could be much, much worse. I can tell you that much. You could get COVID. You want to know what's worse than 24 hours of feeling kind of poopy? COVID. Smash that like button like Jamie would smash Adam in shorty shorts. Oh boy. Oh. Ooh. Like so I would smash Adam in shorty shorts? Well, no, I probably wouldn't smash Adam in shorty shorts. I would admire them though.
I was gonna say you'd be smashed by Adam in shorty shorts.
Ooh, this is true. So tonight we're working on, we're back to our, the new Helmsgard Giants. So we're back on our Dwarf Giants Blood Bowl team. You can see we got a little bit of armor done. Here is our testy model. Testy model there. And this is our new, our little example model. So tonight we're going to work on some non-metallic metal gold because I've gone back and forth on this like a dozen times as to what I wanted to do with these guys. And I've decided I'm going to do non-metallic metals all the way throughout. So we got the armor sort of base coated in. It's not all the way yet, but we're getting there. We are getting there with this guy. But let's get started on some gold. So to do this, I'm going to be using my standard non-metallic gold recipe. So we can take a look at what's going on here. We're going to be using Gobi Brown, Sahara. Ooh, let's actually get those on screen. We're going to be using Gobi Brown. We're going to autofocus? No, of course not. Okay, well then I'll show the bottom of the bottles. We're going to be using Gobi Brown, which is our brown here. Let's see if we can get this guy to focus up. No? Oh, there we go. See, Gobi Brown, scale color Gobi Browns, scale color Sahara Yellow, then Teneri Yellow. And then finally for our like extremely high highlights, we're using white sand, and I would get that to go in focus, but good luck with that. Good luck with that, friends. How are y'all doing tonight? How's everybody out there in Choiceland? How are you doing, Adam, other than cold and being wrapped in a variety of blankets like you were being cocooned?
Pretty good, only worked a half day. That was nice.
Hell yeah, brother. It has been a busy couple of days for me with the old day job, so that's been interesting. For some reason, it's the third week of every month. Everybody just wants everything done all in the same 48-hour period. And then I decided to get a COVID vaccine in the middle of it just to spice things up. Hey, I got a weird question for you, man. Can you hear our like background track, our little chip tunes track?
Let me turn the stream up a little bit so I can actually hear.
Oh, so you can't hear it on Discord though, hey?
No, I don't hear it on Discord.
All right, neato.
I've never heard the music through Discord though. I've only ever heard your voice.
That's fair. I think that is not exactly the way that I want that set up, but if anybody has any idea how to actually set the stuff up as opposed to my system of getting it wrong every week and then scrambling around like a moron, I would love to hear from you. Because I think that the like content of our stream is pretty neat. I'm just, we're getting the technical side of it together slowly. I guess this is all a part of like getting the stream together, right?
Yeah, I did just check both Twitch and YouTube, and there's no background music going on currently.
Neat. Well, that's cool. Well, at some point in time, hopefully, both sound great. Aw, thanks, Jamie. At some point in time, we are supposed to be outputting to the stream. Oh, maybe that'll help. Can we hear? Well, maybe it'll come across in about 10 seconds or so. So the big thing with non-metallic metal, and we'll get into this a bunch tonight. there's a couple of different ways of doing non-metallic metal, and both of them are equally valid. One of them is to have a very definitive plan of what you're doing and nice smooth highlights and transitions and all the way through it. And the other one is to wing it and do it about 600 times, reapply and reapply and reapply until you have something that looks like metal. And I don't know if you guys have watched any of my streams or this is your first time here. I'm going to do one of those for sure. I bet you'll never guess which one, Adam. It's the do it 600 times until it looks sort of right. It's that is my method for non-metallic metal. So
That's fair. I'm not confident enough in my painting abilities to do non-metallic metallics.
that's fair. Maybe we can learn together tonight how I go about it. I can tell you in theory how it works. Then we'll talk about how it actually looks on the model and we can discuss. So one of the big things that really sells non-metallic metal, and this is anytime I've done non-metallic metal, one of the big things that really sells the effect is extremes of contrast. So you can see that all of the stuff that I am eventually going to paint gold is currently painted black. Like the blackest black that I own. This is, well, it's actually not the blackest black I own. But this is all base coated right now in scale color black. So it is a very dark color.
Every time you say the blackest black, I always think of the one speech from Legend.
That is totally fair. I actually watched Willow again a couple of weeks ago. And I know that that's not quite Legend, but like...
I love Willow, man. Willow is great.
Right? I know that I'm gonna get some flack for this, but I think Willow is a better movie than Legend. Legend is Tim Curry Devil, right? And
Tim Curry Devil, and I think it was Tom Cruise's first movie after he got his teeth fixed.
Oh yeah.
Remember him in it's based off a book about gangs of kids in the 50s.
Yeah, Stand By Me.
Big old pony boy.
Yeah.
Big old.
It's Stand By Me, and it is every famous person from the soon-to-be 80s.
Not Stand By Me.
Sorry?
That's not Stand By Me.
Yeah, it's the one that's based off of, what's his name's book?
No, that's not Stand By Me. Stand By Me is the four friends who go on that, like, epic walk camping trip to go see the dead body.
Oh, right. I know what movie you're talking about, though. Help us out, chat. What is this movie?
Maybe you know what this movie is. I actually own a copy of it.
But it has, like, all of Charlie Sheen's kids in it, or not Charlie Sheen.
Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
Hey.
Thank you. There we go.
Scott Smith, is that Scotty from work?
Hey, Scott. Welcome to the channel, man. Thank you for saving us with The Outsiders, because, yeah, that's like... Isn't that all of the, like, Sheen kids? Because, like, Emilio's in it, and Charlie's in it, and Tom Cruise, who isn't a Sheen, but basically is a Sheen, is in it. Like, there's just a bunch of, like, famous dudes in it. Well, soon-to-be famous dudes as children in it. So, as you can see, I'm going around right now, and what I'm basically doing, to start this off with, this is just scale color Gobi Brown. I am using this color to basically mirror places I've already got light concentrated on the armor. So I've got some armor plates that are already down on here that are bright, and I'm just mirroring where that light is with our Gobi Brown right now. So we'll continue to build this up until it actually looks like, say, real metal. No, I'm just kidding. There's a whole bunch of steps in between, but like this is where it all starts, right? So putting down these base coats, and I'm being relatively careful just because I don't want to get this on the armor parts of it, but I'm also not like, this isn't a smooth application of Gobi Brown by any means. So here you can see on a larger surface, get a little closer to the camera here, on a larger surface like this big face shield belly thing that's going on. I'm just going to roughly scrub on here right now. We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday as far as getting paint onto the model. Smooth blends and everything have a very particular place, and those places aren't everywhere you'd think they'd be. And again, on highly textured parts like these idols that he's got around his waist, on that shield armor plate thing that's on his belly, all of that stuff doesn't necessarily need to be like, this guy's going to be playing basically football. He's gotten kicked at and beat up, and his stuff's going to be all scratchy and whatnot. So we can mimic that with the texture of our gold. It doesn't have to be, perfectly flat, perfectly straight, metal. It's going to get beat up and chipped and dinged and all the rest of it. So while we're accounting for all of that in our paint job, it can be a little bit rougher. Now, that's not to say that it's going to be just like one coat of paint, we're done, but like it is a little bit of a easier, less maybe mechanically intensive process on the non-metallic gold. Rather than, like if it just was finely wrought jewelry on like a 75 mil model, like a giant model and all the rest of it, yeah, we'd probably take a lot more time making sure that all the gold blends were really, really smooth. Because if this was the Queen's Priceless Heirlooms, you better believe that thing ain't scratched a lick. But this is some poor fantasy dwarf who is getting beat up by fantasy orcs playing football that includes murder. So like, probably going to get a little bit beat up while he's doing it. Just saying.
Just saw the best meme.
Oh, yeah?
In relation to vaccines.
Ooh, what's the meme?
Vaccines are a gateway drug to concerts.
Indeed they are.
And movies.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not normally a huge moviegoer. Like, I love the movies. I don't normally like going to theaters, and it's mostly because people are disgusting and their children are gross. Now that I've offended half of the audience. Yeah, I don't normally go to movies that often. Like, we go watch, like, things that you really need to watch in a theater. Things like going to see the latest Marvel movie and whatnot, that sort of thing. But like, I'm not huge into like going to see like a comedy or an art house film or whatever. But I gotta say, I'm looking forward to going back to a theater. That is probably like the one thing where I'm like, yeah, man, let's all get vaccinated so that I can go watch movies in a theater. Just a giant tub of popcorn and no shame in the dark.
That is totally fair. Like I pretty much only go see like a Star Wars movie of some form or Marvel movies, and that's really about it.
Yeah, and it's not that like I wouldn't go. I would go watch like, heck, right now. If I was to go to theaters right now, I would probably watch like, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or something. I don't even know what's out right now. That's how out of it I am. Like I know that at some point in time soon, I'm going to be able to go watch probably Black Widow, I guess.
I want to see Dune in theaters.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely want to go see Dunk in theaters. And the reason why I'm calling it Dunk, I know it's Dune. But, like, the logo is so bad, it definitely looks like it says Dunk instead of Dune because the people who made that logo are idiots. Follow me for more rants about designers who get paid way more than I do to do a bad job. Just a real bad job. Seriously, go pull it up. It looks like it says the word dunk.
Looking it up right now.
Regardless, we're keeping on working on our on our non-metallic gold or non-metallic metal gold here. So again, as I reapply stuff, just trying to keep to essentially places that I've already highlighted with the armor. So in places where I've decided that the armor is light. So yeah, right. It says dunk. It doesn't say Dune on there. It says dunk.
Like,
I would pull it up on stream right now, but my hands are full, and you're just gonna have to believe me, viewers. It says Dunk. You can pretend it says Dune, but like you have to know. If I was just some layman who had never read the Dune series and had never read, like didn't know who Paul Atreides was or that Fear is the Mind Killer, like I would swear to God that says Dunk.
So like I have never read Dune.
Really? Oh boy,
Yeah,
you should read Dune.
I've been meaning to, but I just never end up picking up copies. I've read the Mist books.
Not the same. Not even the same author.
No.
Not even really the same genre.
I've read The God Emperor of Dune.
Okay. That's weird that you decided to go there instead of reading the actual like Dune book, but that's okay. I'm not gonna get mad at you for that.
I mean, it was given to me, and I just decided to read it.
Totally fair, my friend. I'm never gonna make fun of people for weird gaps in reading because I have definitely weird gaps in things that I've read. And then like weird, why on earth would you read those? Like, I own a copy of J.R.R. Tolkien's translation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I have read it probably 100 times. Because everybody loves Arthurian legend, right? Especially translated directly from Old English by a weird professor in the he did the translation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in the 1920s. So it was before he was even like The Hobbit famous. He was just no one. He was just a professor at the English or at the Antiquities department at Oxford at that point. Oxford? Yeah, it was Oxford that he was. Yes. This was before he'd ever considered that elves, the way to write a fantasy book is first you have to write the language for the elves. Mr. Tolkien, how do you write a fantasy novel? Do you start with characters? No. Do you start with setting? No. How do you start? First, you must write a language for the elves. I love that meme. I know it's dumb, and I'm not going to guess at how many people on Earth actually get that meme, but like, it's not a zero number, so that's probably cool. Probably better. Better that I think of it that way. There's a non-zero number, and I feel like the people who are on stream with me are going to be the type of people that would understand why that's hilarious. Or not. And then, you know what? I can tell you guys. Adam, do you know the reason for that meme?
I do not.
So, when J.R.R. Tolkien... when J.R.R. Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, he's actually a linguistics professor. That was his actual thing, his actual career. He studied Old English, and it's less impressive when you consider that he is an English person in England at the time, but he was a professor of English Lit at Oxford University. And he was interested in how the transition between basically High Germanic languages and into English languages and how that influences myth. So he spends a lot of his early career working on things like Beowulf translations and stuff like that, and trying to get more accurate examples of pronunciation from that period of time. And then he becomes sort of interested in this intertangling of myth and language, and how language shapes myth and all the rest of it. And as he is coming up with all of his theories about that, he decides that the Isle of England doesn't have its own myths. It borrows a lot of myths from Germanic culture, which is true. Like, the Norman invasion brought basically all of its myths along with it. And because the Romans and everybody else was so good at killing the Celts, basically none of that sort of myth and stuff came along with it. There you go. You can see we got some splotches of color going on this guy. So we'll keep building those splotches up until we've got some opacity with our Gobi Brown, and then we'll keep going. So yeah, when J.R.R. Tolkien sat down to write The Hobbit, it was basically a bedtime story that he was telling his kids. And then when he sat down to write more in that sort of that land, which eventually became The Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth and all the rest of it, which he hadn't really thought up at that point in time. But as he started to write more and more of it, the actual like part of the exercise that he enjoyed academically was writing languages. So he actually invented the entire backstory of like the Lord of the Rings, all of the Silmarillion, which not many people have read all the way through, all of Forgotten Tales and all the rest of that stuff. Those were all notes that he actually wrote for himself so that he could write the Lord of the Rings, so that there was like this consistent mythology behind it all. And even though it wasn't like front and center in the Lord of the Rings or in the Hobbit even, it was all things that he considered. And so one of the things that was the basis for how he wrote the entire world was the two main Elven languages, so Sindarin and sorry, I'm going to forget right now because I'm bad at telling stories, but the two main elf languages were basically his gateway drug into writing in the world of Lord of the Rings. So, and it was all things that were invented before he even started like actually writing the Lord of the Rings, the novel. And so that is the joke. How Mr. Tolkien, how do you write a fantasy novel? Do you start with the world? Do you start with the setting? And no, of course you start by inventing Elven languages. Yep. Joke is way funnier when you explain it. But that is the history of the Lord of the Rings. It actually started off with Tolkien literally writing one language that was split in two and had undergone a diaspora, and that was like the tale of the elves, was one people that were split in two and then underwent a diaspora and how it affected their language and the construction of their words.
Neat.
Sindarin and Noldor. That's the other one. Yeah, well, I guess it depends on how gigantic of a nerd you are. I happen to be a giant Tolkien nerd, so that's my stuff. That's Steve's giant nerd corner. So as I'm getting smaller and smaller bits covered with our Gobi Brown here, if it is in any way in focus, can we bring it a little tighter? Maybe it'll focus up. There we go. Still no. There we go. Sorry, as we're getting closer and closer, I'm also not really, as I said, I'm being pretty lackadaisical about making smooth transitions. I am making transitions, no doubt about it. Just that's the nature of acrylic paints. So it will layer up. So layer upon layer, it becomes more and more opaque. And in this case, it's going to become lighter and lighter because we're painting over black. But I'm not really making like a conscious effort to like make nice smooth transitions. And of course, the other thing that I'll say about any of this stuff, like especially about non-metallic metal, gold, well, any non-metallic metal, considering the surface finish that you want at the end. So I know that I want a beaten and bruised gold, means that I can change how exactly I'm painting my model. As I said before, if I was trying to make the Queen's Jewels, this particular method of being pretty slapdash and sort of carefree about the whole transitioning all the way through wouldn't work quite as well, but it would still work. You're just going to have older looking gold in that case. But if you are looking to make really, really smooth gold, or any non-metallic color really, really smooth, my suggestion is make the transitions really big. Like you'll see on a lot of these faces, I've probably got 1 or 2 transitions. So it'll go from light to light or dark to light to dark. That is intentional. It's because I don't want to do as much blending. If I wanted really smooth non-metallic metals, I'd only put 1 transition per facing, and it just makes it so that it's way easier to blend through these colors. So now that we're kind of partway there on all of these bits, The next color comes in, so I'm just going to start on the palette there. So this is our Gobi Brown here. You can see my tiny finger doing tiny finger things. I'm just going to start mixing in a little bit of Sahara Yellow. So throw some of that on the palette. Again, I'm not going to do a huge amount of blending right now with this stuff. Because I want it to be a little bit rougher, I can really wait on blending until later. And right now, what I want to do is start adding more visual information, more interest, more confusion in the transitions. So it's not just like sloppy transitions that we're working with. We also want to provide a little bit of noise. So you can see I've got a thicker mixture of paint, and just on the edges, like we did on our hospital gown or cloak or whatever on on our Space Marine, I'm gonna get a little scratchier as I'm going across transitions, so I'm gonna add more texture to our model than just a straight up transition. I'm also gonna start picking out some of our edges and stuff now, just as we go through. Picking out edges on this stuff is also going to make the non-metallic metal effect sell a little more. It won't necessarily sell it all on itself. Like, you can't just edge highlight and be like, now you're a non-metallic metal. That's not really how that works. But this is sort of the first step. So we go through, we do some edge highlighting as we add our lighter and lighter colors on. Adam, I feel like I'm doing all the talking. Are you all right there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm just really tired today.
That's totally fair.
Even though it was only a half day, just really tired. I was honestly napping until about 5 minutes before the stream.
That's fair. I like napping. I tried this afternoon. It did not work. I tried just falling asleep last night after I got the old COVID vaccine. That worked a little bit. I mean, I fell asleep around midnight. Then my baby boy Apollo, and by baby boy I mean my dog, because yep, that's what I'm going to identify as a baby now. My dog Apollo decided to crawl in bed with me at like 4:45 in the morning. Neither of us are good at sleeping with someone else. So, of course, we spent the entire rest of the night trying to kick each other off the bed. Since I am bigger and angrier, I got to stay on the bed. But that did not mean he didn't wait until every time I fell asleep to try and hop back on the bed. Because he is a tiny little rascal.
That's totally fair. Rocket likes to sleep, like, not in line with us on the bed, but he likes to sleep across the bed. So, like, perpendicular to us.
That seems even more annoying since your dog is about 80 times the size of my dog.
It's, I work around it. I usually put my legs on top of him. And then he'll lay there for about 10 minutes until he's sick of my crap. And then he'll change positions.
Yeah, Artemis and I came to an agreement when she was a very small puppy that neither of us likes sleeping with each other, as we just kick each other all night long. And rather than having a kick my dad battle all night long, we're much happier to just sleep on the floor or somewhere that isn't the bed with dad. Because I'm a dick and they don't pay rent. So they had a job. I guess I'd feel worse about them having to sleep on the floor, but they don't. Their only job is to be cute as heck, and they are heckin' cute. They are heckin' cute. So again, we're just adding a little bit of visual interest as we do some of the blending here. We're getting closer and closer to sort of our mid-tone here. Like, this is it's going to be, our mid-tone is going to be a combination of Sahara Yellow and Sahara Yellow. Then our highlights are going to be into the white sands regions of things. So I'm still covering a fairly decent amount of the model in this color, like of the gold areas in this color. And again, we're being pretty scratchy with this. Like, I'm not doing super smooth transitions between this stuff. I am leaving it, of course, in nice thin coats because I don't want the spirit of Duncan Rhodes to come through the stream and bite me or something. He doesn't look like a biter, but like I don't know what Duncan would do, but I feel like if I let down Duncan by not doing thin coats,
I feel like he'd pinch you a whole bunch.
You think he's a pincher?
I think he's a pincher.
I don't know, man. I just don't want to disappoint Duncan, all right? Like, in the long run, in the short and skinny, in the other metaphor, I just don't want to disappoint that dude. He seems like a lovely man. At any rate, we're going to continue to just get more and more gold down, sticking mostly to the high points of the model. Now, this is also going to be, so aside from being, aside from also being our mid-tone in most of the model, in our downward facing features or our lower down features, so things like these buckles and stuff like that, especially this buckle that's underneath of a whole bunch of stuff, this is probably going to be our highest highlight. I'm probably not going to bring it much beyond full force Sahara Yellow. Because if we go much brighter than that down in the shadows, it's going to start taking away from where we do highlighting further up the model. Because we always want a gradient on a model that goes top to bottom. Like we want our brightest highlights to really center around the face and frame the face. We also want to keep in mind where we are bringing our light in from. And on this model, we're basically bringing the light in from this direction. So if you follow my paintbrush, it's basically falling across the model in this way. So knowing that that is where the highest highlights are going to be, we're going to definitely highlight the model as if those faces are catching a little bit more light than the rest of the model is. So again, highest highlights are going to go towards the top, around the face, to bring interest to the face because we're human beings and we like looking at pretty faces. I mean, we also like looking at ugly faces, so it's not just like a amount of pretty matters. But being human beings, we communicate a lot through facial expression. And so even when we're communicating with tiny plastic boys, our tiny plastic boys also get lots of interest done right around their faces. Because otherwise, how would we communicate with our tiny plastic boys?
I don't know. I would say in probably with sticks and rocks. Let's be honest.
I was gonna go with banging of drums, but I will accept sticks and rocks. I had a musicology professor back in ye olde days when I was doing more music. I had a musicology professor who was pretty insistent that a combination of banging on sticks and rocks and rhythmic grunting was probably the first way that, like, banging sticks on rocks and rhythmic grunting was probably the way that humans communicated before speech. He would know. He has done a lot of research into that sort of thing. But yeah, it amused me to know him that basically rap music was our first means of communicating with one another. Well, not all rap, but mumble rap specifically. It was probably our first means of communication as human beings to other human beings. Just grunting atonally while rhythmically beating sticks and rocks together. So again, we're not going to spend a huge amount of time doing all the highlighting on the face. We want to go spend not equal time, but like some time on other parts of the model. So again, I'm out here on some of our broader spaces, just adding more information. Where this is going to get much more complicated, and probably the most interesting part of this model, is when we get into the highlighting across our shield emblem here on the chest. This is probably going to be the point of biggest interest on the model outside of the face. So, and because this face, our little dwarf giant's face here is kind of covered, we're first going to treat it as if it's all one shape. So we're going to treat it as if it were one giant wheel that is partially spherical. And then we'll come back after we've got that in, and we're going to come back and redo some of the highlighting and shadows, because you can see there's lots of texture in there. If we can get him to focus up while he's close to the camera lens. There you go. You can see that there's lots of texture inside of that like dwarf shieldy bit there. But first we're going to treat it as if it's one shape first. And then we'll come back once we've got it so that it looks like it is a shape. If this ever comes back into focus. Autofocus is a little slower than it normally is tonight. That's weird.
A little bit.
We have another camera that we are going to get, but that shape. Sorry, I'm just going to pop that in a little bit. There we go. Okay. Sorry. We'll treat it all as if it's one shape first, and then we'll come back and we'll pull out smaller individual shapes afterwards. And we'll do that in a couple of ways. We're going to come back and do some more shadow work on the whole thing. Just laying in shadows using a variety of methods. And then the other one is we'll do some really, really tight highlighting with our 2 highlight colors. So while we're working our way through the midtone on the rest of the model, this is going to be, as I said, kind of our highlight in some of the lower areas. Not all of the lower areas is this the highlight, but in some of them it definitely is. We'll see how it works, but we want to get a nice gradient going across the model from top to bottom. Just bringing out the parts that are reflective. And again, I get to be, this is the wonder and joy of having like crappy, scratchy metal and whatnot, is I don't have to be 100% smooth blends and all the rest of it. So as you can tell, I've said that like a dozen times tonight, because I'm also reminding myself of that so that I don't spend 40 minutes on the little thing on the top of his helmet, and instead we get to touch the entire model tonight so that we're not just painting one tiny boring detail the entire time. Because I've definitely done that on stream before, where we painted the smallest of details over and over again until it looked like a shoulder pad.
It happens sometimes. Like, I've definitely spent what most people would think is too much time on a single section of a mini before.
That's fair. I think the most time I've ever spent on a mini. Oh no, it's definitely Nagash. Never mind. I was gonna say, I think it might be the Keeper of Secrets, but no, it's Nagash. Nagash, who is still only, at best, charitably speaking, about 3/4 done. He is sitting on a shelf, not in shame. Nagash is one of those pieces that I really want to do a good job of, and I have a very specific reason that I want to do such a nice job of him, and it's not that it's intimidating, it's just that I haven't really gotten to it in a while. Like, it's just one of those models that I really want to be in the mood to do a very good job of, and that mood doesn't always strike when you'd want it to. It just sort of does it on its own. And some days I'm like, we are Nagash painting today. And then I say to myself, Steve, you need to have that thing painted so that you can go live in 2 hours. And I'm like, shut up, Nagash is the only thing that matters. Because sometimes he is the only thing that matters in my life. It's not frequent, but like sometimes he is.
Oh yeah, I get that. Like, I mean, I've seen that mini. It's huge.
Not only is it a huge mini, it is a very... There is like an age of GW minis where they're like, hey, how much detail can we cram into a single model? And everyone's like, I don't know, probably a lot. And they're like, double it. He is definitely a poster child of that. There is, like, even though his cloak is just made up of like a tattered old cloak, the tattered old cloak has like 1,000 little tatters and like greeblies and whatnot all over it. Like, it's just got stuff everywhere. So you try to go to paint anything and you're like, oh, I guess I am going to paint I guess today I'm going to paint the tattered frayed edges of a cloak all day. And you gotta really be in the mood to do a good job of that, because that is boring as heck otherwise. And sometimes I don't want to do the boring effect work. Sometimes I want to do the like cool, look at how neat this dwarf is starting to look sort of work. So you guys can see I went back to grab the Gobi Brown. Just I wasn't quite happy with how we were rendering out some of the gold on our dude's face. Knowing of course that I can come back and drop in lots of I can come back later on and drop in black. Like I've got a variety. We got a variety of ways we can do that together. And if I over brighten parts of his base armor, his beard protector. Again, I'm at a loss for what
beard protector.
Okay, so knowing that I can come back to his beard protector, I can over highlight this a little bit, and it's not that big a deal in the long run because again, we like looking at faces. We're monkeys. Monkeys like faces. Cool. I will over highlight some parts of his of his face so that he looks even neater, and then we'll come back and cut back into this a little bit with either a black wash, or we can come back in with some Gobi Brown and blue and really do some work to get it back down to a reasonable lumosity point. Like the amount of light will look correct in conjunction with the rest of the model. But I'm not super worried if we over highlight a little bit on this area. Just it is very small. It is very detailed. It is face oriented. So all of those things combine to giving me pretty good confidence that we can go a little bit extreme on the highlights here, and nobody's gonna write to I don't know, my mom. My mom wouldn't care about this. My mom would question all of this. It would be like, so you're telling me that you paint minis on the internet? And I'd be like, yup. That would be where that questioning ends, because the conversation would have bored her. I don't blame her. She does plenty of things that are not my cup of tea, that when she tries to converse with me about, I also try to feign that I am interested. So I think everybody has that. The thing that you're really interested in, like for me, you know, Tolkien. I love Tolkien. Not everybody loves Tolkien as much as I do. Which is a travesty, because he is a mediocre author. But he did invent a lot of the tropes that we use for fantasy, and I do like fantasy.
This is true. I don't know a lot about Tolkien. I mean, I have read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. That's really about it. I haven't read like the Silmarillion or any of the other ones.
Silmarillion.
Silmarillion?
Yep. It is a big, long novel about the history of Earth, and it encompasses all the events of the Lord of the Rings in about a chapter. Not even a chapter. Sort of a footnote when he's talking about the end of the Third Age, basically. Like, and it's not just the events of the Lord of the Rings. It's from when Gandalf is sent to Middle Earth the first time through to the defeat of Sauron is like a chapter. Because fun story, it's not the only time Sauron loses. Sauron is very good at losing.
A few times.
Yeah, he loses once when well, not so much loses. So he's on the losing side when Melkor loses, and the fortress of Angband is destroyed, which Angband's the actual, well, it's actually sort of close, but under the sea to where like the hobbits live. I don't know how else to explain that. At any rate, Angband is where Melkor lives. Well, not really. Melkor Morgoth. He lives in a dark void because he lost to the elves. I don't know how else. Well, the elves in Mire. I don't know how else to put that. At any rate, Sauron is just one of his lieutenants. Loses then. Sauron loses again at the breaking of Middle Earth when the Black Númenóreans, who he's corrupted, who are a bunch of like, you know that like Strider Aragorn isn't just like a regular dude. He is like something special called a Númenórean. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew about that. Like I know bits and pieces of like the kind of extended lore outside of the books, but like I've never, that's just from like talking to people who have read the other books.
Is it me? Is it me who talked to you about?
Oh yeah, you and like my brother and
Oh, that's fair. A. Bron. Although I don't think
Aaron.
Aaron likes Lord of the Rings as much as I do. So not that it's a contest. It's definitely not. He might like them more than I do, but I highly doubt it.
I'm not sure. All I know is Aaron's old balls.
That's true. I to truly prove the depth of my nerdiness, I have written more than one essay, and not like people think essay and it's like, oh, you did that in like grade school or something. No, I've written more than one university like thesis level essay about Lord of the Rings. Yep. We'll probably leave it there. I'm super nerdy for Lord of the Rings, so it's one of those things. Yeah, the other defeats of Sauron. So Sauron loses when the Black Numenorians rebel against and try to go to Valar. Like they try to leave Middle Earth and go to the place where elves go when they die / when they're alive, because elves don't die. At any rate, he tries to go to the Undying Lands and convinces all the Numenorians that they want to go there, and they're like, yeah. So they try to go there, and they all lose real bad because Eru Ilúvatar is like, no, this is where elves go. You stay in Middle Earth. I made a nice Middle Earth for you. That's where you'll stay. And so he drowns them all in the ocean. And that is definitely one of the times that our friend Sauron loses, and probably the funniest because he spent like 3/4 of the time there just hiding out, being like, I'm super sneaky. I'm going to get to the land of the Valar and do all sorts of sneaky crap when I get there. And instead, his plan is well known to everybody. And they're all like, yeah, we knew you were like a lieutenant of Morgoth. Like, we're not stupid, man. We just want your help. And he's like, oh, neat. Do you want to go now? And they're like, yeah, of course. Let's do this. Let's go and steal the elves on the Undying Land of the elves. Does not work out that way for the Black Numenorians. Also, actually, my favorite Black Numenorian that appears in the Peter Jackson movies. You know the mouth of Sauron. So when they all go to the Black Gates, and there's that like super creepy dude with a really tall helmet and has the like painful looking Joker mouth scars.
Yeah, he's basically just like a helmet and a giant mouth.
Yeah, that dude is a Black Numenorian. He is one of the ones who tried to betray them and somehow lived. And Sauron keeps him around as a pet because he likes to remember that he once twisted the creations of Eru Ilúvatar, just like his daddy did, Melkor. He's like, I'm so good at this. Look, I can also make weird twisted abominations. Now, Melkor made actual cool abominations. He just made a dude with a messed up mouth. So, like, not as powerful. But like a Gandalf level powerful. Gandalf is also like they are similar power levels. Also, Balrog, similar power level to Sauron and to Gandalf. Well, at least Gandalf before he comes back as Gandalf the White. I can keep giving you Lord of the Rings lore if you want. We can talk about my favorite elves.
What else are that?
So my favorite elves are a race of elf called the Noldor elves. So the Noldor elves, these are guys. So in the original Light of the Trees, when elves were first created and were woken on the land in the dark, they made 2 trees that captured the pure light and beauty of the universe. One was silver, one was gold. They were eventually corrupted and destroyed. Then blah. We made some neat jewels. Galadriel's hair is caught the color of the trees. At any rate, the Noldor elves, they left long before any of that stuff happened. They were like, nope, we're gonna go to the Middle Earth. And everyone's like, but why are you leaving? This is paradise. And they're like, don't know. I'm just bored. I'm gonna go. And they were like, all right, bye. And the Noldor elves eventually, like through the generations, continuously just get murdered because their dad doesn't love them anymore. Eru Ilúvatar is like, whatever, they left. I don't care about them. I never cared about them. They're dead to me. So bad things keep happening to them and nobody intervenes. There's no eagles that show up and none of that stuff. But as all of that bad stuff is invariably happening to the poor children who chose to rebel, eventually they like make good, and by like make good I mean they finally kind of find their own way in the world and like find a homeland and all the rest of it. And they're the first elves to settle in Middle Earth, and they are there before men. They're there before, well, not before the dwarves. The dwarves are there first because somebody fucked up and made, oops, I just dropped an F-bomb. Somebody messed up and dropped them before everything else was nice and ready in Middle Earth for everybody to go and hang out there. At any rate, dwarfs were a mistake. At any rate, the Noldor were the first elves in Middle Earth that actually like made their own place, and they were eventually the descendant or the ancestors of the elves of Mirkwood. So like Legolas and Thranduil, and like not Evangeline Lilly, because unfortunately her character is a bad addition demanded by a studio that has no idea what they're doing.
Is that the one from The Hobbit?
Yeah, that's the Evangeline Lilly is the Hobbit edition. So there was more ladies in The Hobbit because there was no ladies in The Hobbit.
That is correct. There's no ladies in The Hobbit, unless you count Shelob.
Shelob's not in The Hobbit.
Oh yeah, I was definitely thinking of Fellowship of the Rings. I was picturing like the old like 70s cartoon Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies for some reason.
Yeah, in the cartoon in the, what was it, late 60s I think, for The Hobbit, there are also no ladies, but
Yes.
they do voice the spiders in the woods with female voices, some of them. So when they're going through Mirkwood, some of the spiders are given lady voices so that there is lady representation. Hashtag feminism, I guess. Not good feminism, but like barely representation, I guess. Hashtag bad feminism. Listen, I'm not going to make any excuses for J.R.R. Tolkien. He had a weird upbringing. Being Catholic in Protestant England / Anglican England was super bad for him as a child, and he never really got over it. And I will fight people who say that it didn't affect his writing in a lot of ways. But he was bad at writing women because of the society he lived in and the value that was placed on specifically his mother throughout his life, because his mom kind of got the short end of the stick because she was Catholic. And everybody sort of treated her like she was dirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, you know, Anglican England in the like late 19th and early 20th centuries, not a great place for women, period. Less good when you are not of the dominant religion, and the Catholic Church has literally no power, and your friends and neighbors are all Anglicans because the king said everybody in England is Anglicans, and your mom and her family just said fully to that. Listen, it's never easy to go against the majority. I can't imagine it was any easier as a essentially single mother in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. So fun story about the movies that I'm sure most people know this story, but I still like it anyway. Christopher Lee, who was Sauron in the movies.
Oh, is this with the death scene?
No, well, we can tell that one too. But Christopher Lee was the only character or the only actor in the entirety of Lord of the Rings, including all the directors and extras, including both of the artists who are most famous for illustrating Tolkien's work, who'd actually met J.R.R. Tolkien while he was alive.
Oh.
And he actually asked Mr. Tolkien, or at least apocryphally, this is what he said in interviews. He actually asked J.R.R. Tolkien if he could be, like, if it ever came to it, he was like, hey, would you mind if I played Gandalf? And apparently Mr. Tolkien was like, yeah, I would love it if you were Gandalf. You are very Gandalf looking. And he was like, super neato. So yeah, he had actually met J.R.R. Tolkien when Tolkien was still alive. I mean, if I remember correctly, he passed away in the 50s. So like, it's not like Christopher Lee was that old at that point in time, but he was still in his late 30s, I want to say.
50s? Yeah, he'd been late 30s, early 40s, I think.
But the story that Adam is referring to is at one point in the movie, Saruman, because the movies are way different than the books, Saruman gets stabbed in the back by Grima Wormtongue while he's on top of the Tower of Orthanc. I think everybody, you don't see it in the theatrical cut, but if you've seen the extended cuts, which is most likely, I feel like at this point, because I don't even know where you can find the theatrical cuts if I'm honest. But
they are an option on the extended editions.
Cool. I don't know why you do that. At any rate, in the theatrical cuts, Saruman dies off screen, but in the extended cuts, he gets stabbed in the back by Grima Wormtongue on top of the Tower of Orthanc. And he was discussing that with Peter Jackson, who was the director, and was like, that's not what stabbing a dude in the back is like. He's like, what do you mean that's not what stabbing a dude in the back is like? He's like, listen, I know what stabbing a dude in the back sounds like. I have done it. And Peter Jackson was like, pardon? Yeah, Christopher Lee was actually he was an SAS, well, not an SAS trooper, but he was a special forces trooper in the Second World War.
In the SOE.
Yeah, he was commando and special operative.
Yep, he was a member of what was fondly, or not so fondly referred to as the Department of Ungentlemanly Warfare,
which is pretty much the most British thing that you could possibly be a part of. If we're being serious, like the Department of Ungentlemanly Warfare is literally the most British Britishism that has ever Britished a Brit.
That's fair.
Also, I love that it is Sir Winston Churchill who is the commander of the Department of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah, well, not like because he was the prime minister, but he was the one who he was like, nope, this needs to be a thing.
Yeah, he was like, well, he was also the first commander in chief.
Yeah, he was commander in chief, and then after Chamberlain got voted after like the next election, which happened like shortly after the beginning of the war, for you Americans, the Second World War started in 1939, not 1941.
Started in 1936 when they invaded Czechoslovakia, but that's okay. Or it started in 1934 during Kristallnacht. At any rate, I will argue that the start of the war had to begin when the Germans, murdered all of their allies in Parliament and created a military bund. But we can argue that a different day.
Yeah. But yeah, it was one of his first, like one of Churchill's first things he did was form the SOE, the Special Operations Executive.
Now, the Special Operations Executive, is that Sir Ian Fleming's division as well?
Yeah, he was a member of that. He was like, I guess, like an agent, because like they deployed undercover agents as well as commando forces.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, Ian Fleming isn't James Bond. Like he wasn't the same person as James Bond.
James Bond was based off of someone he knew from SOE.
Yeah, that's what I remember of the story as well, is that he wasn't necessarily James Bond, but he was definitely based off of people, like an amalgam of people that Ian Fleming knew. Ian Fleming, for those who aren't following this, Ian Fleming is the original author of the James Bond novels.
Yeah, the first one being Dr. No, and it's
the first one is Casino Royale.
James Bond novels, they're fun.
First James Bond novel is Casino Royale.
Oh yes, first movie is Dr. No.
Yeah, first movie is Dr. No.
Yes.
And then there is the Casino Royale that is a James Bond movie and everything except for it's not owned by the Broccoli family. Or is it just not distributed by Paramount? I can't remember which, but it's one of those things. And then there is the Daniel Craig Casino Royale, which is a James Bond movie.
Yes.
Tangents upon tangents.
Yeah. I know a lot about the SOE. It's a little gem I like to read about, especially because like I'm really fascinated by like British special warfare in the Second World War, because like essentially like both the British special forces units today, like the SAS and the SBS, were formed and kind of like cut their teeth in like the beginnings of the war, and not very well. A lot of their first missions were just utter failures.
Well, there's a
for the SAS, the SBS was a little bit more successful, but they were like totally different like jobs essentially.
Yeah, and the Second World War was a real change in warfare tactics. I think it's the first time that we'll see. I mean, if you get more into it, the First World War was fought as a war of attrition, which is the first real time that we had trench warfare and all the rest of it. Like, all those considerations were brand new, because normally armies were made of professional soldiers who lined up across the battlefield from one another. And then the American Civil War happened, and everyone was like, maybe we do war like this now. And everybody started taking insurgent tactics more seriously as a form of warfare. And then when we get to the Second World War, we see what a fully industrialized and mechanized war, total war, looks like. Because it's really the first time in history that we actually have total war. This is total war being the entire military and industrial output of a country is going solely to the war effort. And then in the Second World War, we get to see what an information-powered total war looks like, and it's way, way worse. Because now that we have a professional army that has insurgent tactics on both sides, and we're no longer standing in fields artillery shelling each other for 6 months in a row before we get the boys up over the ridge to go and die. It's 1,000 times worse because we're mobile and better at it and have better weapons and communications. And oh God, we are so good at it. And it's so very bad for everybody involved.
Yeah. There's also the Second Anglo-Boer War, which was 1903 to 1906, I believe.
Yeah, we also get like the the Nippon-Russo War in the same time. Like, there's a bunch of wars where like basically the entire world goes from like seeing the American the American War of Independence happen and be like, could we do that but like better? And yeah, turns out yes.
Yeah.
But you know what it's time for right now, buddy?
It is time for the news.
It's even making music right now. We're talking over it, but it's making
music. Ooh, the Twitch stream is about almost a full 5 seconds ahead of the YouTube stream.
Neat. So let's talk about the news this week. So first up in the news for this week, something that I actually brought up, I don't know, months ago when we first started the stream. The Redgrass V2 wet palette is now live on Kickstarter. You guys can see I was backer number 106. There's a few more now. It's up for the next 20 days. I've got a Redgrass palette already. That's what you guys can see on the palette cam. This one is really finally, I think, sort of living up to the promises of the first one, as long as we actually get what they promised. So in the original, you were supposed to get, one reusable membrane that you could wash and use forever. It's not a use forever membrane still. It is a, use it 10 times and wash it out, but that's fine. I needed a bigger palette anyway, or rather I wanted a bigger palette, so I've got a bigger palette that I've got on order. You guys can order them now. There is nothing in my painting career that has changed the way I painted more than having a wet palette. I really do love having a wet palette. I like the Redgrass game system. I've had other wet palettes in the past. The big thing for me is that the lid closes really tight. So that's the big thing. Also, the pre-cut sheets for the V1, and then now that the V2 is coming out, it's going to have pre-cut hydration stuff. So not terribly expensive. I think in total with a bunch of other stuff, it cost me like $85 shipping in Canadian. So this is the big one that sort of sells it. Yeah, so you just wipe off the paint when you're done. That's the big thing. So, yep. That's pretty much it. I don't know what else to say about that, man.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Number 2, I guess. We'll go to the second news. Oh, there it is. Another Kickstarter, because I'm unimaginative and it's been busy. But
It's totally fair. I did an entire news segment a couple weeks ago that was just all Kickstarter. So
That's fair. No, for this one, you guys can see just down in the little cam in the corner, I use scale color. So whenever Scale 75 puts something out there that they've got new stuff coming up, I'm going to look at it and seriously contemplate it and put it in and out of my backer cart. But there's 7 days left on Zodiac. So Zodiac is their current set of models. So for those who don't know, Scale Color also is Scale 75. So Scale Color is the paint brand. Scale 75 is their models and stuff. They typically do 75 millimeter models, but this time they're also doing our little 35 millimeter friends, which sometimes get some love, but mostly don't. And then we've got a bunch of new colors that are also coming out with the set. So I'm not a huge fan of Scale Color's metallics so far. I've got some, not a huge fan, but I do love just their regular base colors. I don't know what their actual base colors that are coming out here with this one are, so it'll be interesting to see. The other thing is that all of the minis are super duper cool that come out with this one. So it is all 12 of the Zodiac calendar ones. And it's fairly inexpensive for them. That's Aries there, and he is one of my favorites. Some super duper Aries, Taurus, and then there's Cancer. And I love Cancer only because it is actually my birth sign. So she's great. Yeah. Get yourself.
Cancer is also my birth sign.
All the greatest people have Cancer birth signs. But yeah, no, it actually looks like a pretty cool set. I do like that it is in two sizes, so you can either get it in 35 or 75 millimeters. And as I said, it's 85 euro, I think, or I guess I didn't mention it. It's 85 euro for 24 paints, and these are exclusive paints for the Kickstarter. They haven't said whether or not they are releasing them afterwards, so I would be interested to see whether or not that is going to be a thing afterwards. I don't think I've seen anything that's gone through Kickstarter that hasn't been available on their website afterwards, so this might be one of those ones where I hold out and just buy paint because I don't care about the other stuff that comes with this one. Even though they're cool looking models, they're just, it's not really my thing. This is the sort of fantasy that I'm into. So yeah, that's number news the second. And news the third. Have you ever read the Wheel of Time series?
Not.
Oh man. It is one of Daniel's favorite series of novels, our friend Dan. Dan, love you, buddy, if you get to watch this at some point. But yeah, the Wheel of Time is being adapted now. So along with the Lord of the Rings, this is the other or the Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. This is the third giant fantasy series that Amazon has bought, and they wrapped season 1 this week. It got delayed, super delayed because of COVID. And in 2019, they had actually announced that there was already a second season that was under development before anybody had seen season 1. Like, I think they'd wrapped the pilot on the first season when they announced that they had picked up an option for a second season. They still haven't showed the first episode of The Wheel of Time. It comes out sometime this summer, probably. But yeah, it's neat that they've decided that there is already a season 2 that's going into production, and we still haven't seen season 1. And it's one of my favorite series of books. So,
I mean, they did do that with Star Trek Picard as well. The first season hadn't even aired, and they're like, oh yeah, we've already renewed this for like 2 more seasons at least.
Yeah, I think Picard gets season 2 later on this year, doesn't it?
It does.
Nice.
I'm super stoked. I really enjoyed the first season. The cargo ship pilot is probably one of my favorite characters. Him and his like 18 holographic variations of himself.
Fair enough. I still haven't watched Picard. And that feels bad because Jean-Luc Picard is one of my favorite characters in fiction. It's just, I haven't gotten there, man. Listen, I watch like 12 hours of YouTube a day. I have to sleep for like 10 minutes a night. That really is like, what, 8 hours a day to work? And I got to spend at least 4 more hours a day petting my dogs. Otherwise, like, what's the point of even having dogs? Life is busy, man. Can't always just watch Picard through it. That's not true. I probably could have watched Picard several times over by now. I haven't. I heard it was adequate. and that was not good enough for me to put time into it. And I'm not saying that it is adequate. I should really watch it on my own, but like I still haven't seen like I haven't watched Mando season 2. So like when we want to get mad at me for having watched the inappropriate things or the wrong things, I guess we can start with Mando season 2 instead, and then just progress on from there.
I really enjoyed Mando season 2. I'm excited for the Book of Boba Fett and for actually pretty much all of the Star Wars shows that are up and coming. But I mean, I also really like Star Trek too. So
Hey, if we had to choose like post-apocalyptic future to well, I guess not post-apocalyptic, but like a future to live in, it would be a hard choice between Star Trek and Star Wars, but it would definitely go Star Trek in the long run. Like when I think about it, I'm not going to be a Jedi. I'm going to be like a moisture farmer, and I would rather live in the Star Trek future where a moisture farmer is a cool position on a starship than like a slave. Although there is a like minor possibility that even in the Star Trek universe, I'm like one of the like races, the race that still believes in slavery is like the one that I end up spawning in as. So
yeah, yeah, I like in the long run, Star Wars would be really really cool, but I'd never be able to be any of the cool stuff in it.
oh yeah, no,
And
there is just
Star Trek, like at least I don't have to worry about money to get food.
right? Like I don't have to degrade myself for things. I can just like live a life of relative dignity and you know,
Like, I mean,
it's an actual utopia as opposed to like a dystopian like world that's been destroyed by space wizards. Because like the world's been destroyed by space wizards. We all can see that, right? Like
it's like 3 or 4 times.
oh yeah, like every time like it's either like Sith or Jedi or like a combination of the two of them that are just making the world a worse place to be in for literally everyone else, and only they care about it. Everyone else is like, dude, I just want to hurt these nerfs, man. Why you gotta be, dude? I just need to repair this droid. Like, why you gotta be having a galactic war over here? I don't want this. Could you stop, please? I gotta
Yeah,
milk
like,
this bantha. I gotta squeeze this weird dude's nipples who's just hanging out on this rock with me for money apparently because the world sucks.
oh yeah, to get the blue milk.
Yeah, well, or the green milk from Ryan Johnson's Star Wars.
Last Jedi.
Yeah, Last Jedi. Thank you.
No problem. I try really hard to enjoy the 3 new ones. While I don't fully enjoy each movie, there are scenes and aspects of each movie that I do really enjoy.
You know what? I love that they exist. I do. I really do. Like there is parts of each one of those movies where I'm like, whatever. I guess this isn't for me. But I'm not going to take anything away from them. Like, each one of them.
Like, you know, I enjoyed, you know, scenes and parts of the movie. I was like, okay, that was fun. There's other parts where I was like, eh.
I mean, the Canto Bite thing was
a disaster.
You know, I've gone back and watched that movie, and it still just stops the story dead in its tracks, and it doesn't really add anything to the overall stakes of the story. It's just like an excuse to have a fun adventure with 2 characters who otherwise we probably wouldn't care as much about in this movie. Like, Finn doesn't.
If you took that scene out of the movie, it would have no effect on the rest of the movie.
Well, when things like plot wise, you are correct, but there is, there is things about who Finn is as a character that I think could have been better executed in that part of the movie. And some of the messaging that Rian Johnson is trying to bring to the Star Wars universe is also a part of that, like, examine who your friends are and, examine your own affiliations and assumptions, because not everybody is the bad guy just because they're your opposition. That's a healthy message. That is something that, the world could live with a little more these days. Unless your opposition is Nazis, in which case just punch them. Punch them repeatedly until they stop being Nazis.
True.
And not everybody you disagree with on the internet is a Nazi.
No. Nazis are horrible, horrible people. And not everyone is actually a Nazi.
Some Nazis are not humans.
That doesn't make them a Nazi.
Yeah.
I swore again. I apologize.
That's fine. We can live through it. Just
yeah. There's there was in The Last Jedi a very, very, I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt this, a very brief moment where we were going to see Harrison Ford re-enter Star Wars just as a different character. He was going to be Space Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, I would have loved that.
I would have loved that. And then when it didn't happen, I was like, that was still a very nice, like, homage to Indiana Jones. And that part made me smile, made me feel good, and I enjoyed the throne room fight scene. When that
I also love
that to "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen. It is perfect.
I also really enjoyed and appreciated the Poe's fighting of the Dreadnought. I think it showed a really great part of that, like a great side to that character. It was fun. I don't understand how they have the joke about, okay, I'll wait, like I'll hold. Like I know in universe that doesn't make sense, but like there are all sorts of things in the Star Wars universe that don't make sense. Are there vultures in the Star Wars universe? And if so, are they like the same as Earth vultures? Because they call them vulture droids. How would they even know to call them that? At any rate.
Yeah, it's very true.
The Star Wars universe is silly, dumb, and inconsistent. We can all agree that.
A-wings, but none of those letters are in the Star Wars alphabet.
Yeah, AX, like Eric Besh doesn't have any of those letters. So how do they know what an A looks like?
Exactly.
Which sort of makes sense because the A-wings also don't look like A's. So
they look like capital A's from the top.
I guess. Does a B-wing look like a capital B from the top?
No, the B-wings, the B stands for badass.
I don't know enough to disagree with you, but I feel like that's incorrect in my heart.
Case, X-wings are, out of the like 4, X-wings are the most badass. But B-wings were designed to, like, a single B-wing can take out a capital ship. That's what it's designed to do. It's covered in ion cannons and like heavy repeating laser cannon or blaster cannons, and has like 4 torpedo launchers on it because it's also surprisingly large.
Oh yeah, no, I know that from. Listen, man, I played an exceptionally large amount of TIE Fighter as a teen, maybe a tween.
That's fair. I also played quite a bit of TIE Fighter.
And I can tell you all about all of the TIE Fighter games.
Star Wars Squadrons, because it's on Xbox Game Pass.
Not the same. Well, they like to, from what I've seen and what I've played of it, it is, in my opinion, again, in my opinion alone, so it is much closer to Rogue Squadron than it is to TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter was a flight sim, right? Like, it was a combat flight sim.
Yeah.
Rogue Squadron was, I don't know, an arcade shoot 'em up. Like, it was Star Fox, except for with, like, Star Wars ships.
Yeah, that's fair. No, and I can totally get behind that. Like, I loved TIE Fighter because of the simulation aspect of it. That's one of the reasons why I love, like, I really do enjoy the BattleTech games, like the tactical, like, strategy games.
Yeah,
kinda
the like cockpit
it's an
simulator
XCOM
games.
style game. Like it's the turn-based play. But it's I prefer the MechWarrior ones because I like the simulation aspect of it. Like I never use the third person view; it's always cockpit view. I have mods on that make it look like the guy's actually wearing the neural helmet, so it's got like a little faceplate to see out of. And I have a mod on where when my mech overheats too much, I black out.
Yeah, like that to me is the fun parts of those games is the cockpit simulation, like simulating the helmet fire that is commanding essentially a fighter jet, or in this case, like in the case of MechWarrior, a fighter jet combined with like a heavy bomber combined with a tank at the same time. Like,
Built out of a building.
yeah. But at any
They
rate,
used a building for scale. How are we gonna scale it? Use that building. That building is like 30 stories. Yeah, okay.
neat. I mean, they're not quite that big. They're 100 tons, so they're what, 55, 60 feet tall.
The Atlas, I think, being
Like the Atlas is the largest chassis, and it's 120 or 110 tons in standard configuration, if I remember correctly.
what's a 100-ton monster?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Because
There's the only ones that go over 100 tons are the quad legs, and those are usually 110 to 120.
Regardless, like at that, you're only less than. Okay, so
See,
like 100 tons is
to-
gonna have to be less than 5 stories tall. Because
Like I do.
any taller than that, and you get into like, I mean, obviously it depends on overall volume, but like, yeah, any taller than that, and you start getting into the hundreds, like multiple hundreds of tons. Think of it this way: Starship, which is SpaceX's not quite their prototype. It can carry 150 tons to orbit inside of a volume of 70 cubic meters, which is like 24 meters tall, which is roughly 70 feet. Anyway. By followers and viewers, why thank you, whatever you're stupid, that is definitely spam. Even if I wanted to buy followers, I would never buy it from a spam bot. Like somebody like a spam bot that solicits a stream would never be the place that I would do it on. So like good try, spam thing. Maybe we'll catch you next time.
I did mispronounce. It's most mechs are 3 stories tall.
There you go.
Averaging out 10 meters. So I've got a brief chart here. Oh, the Atlas is not the tallest mech.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. I thought there was one that was larger than the Atlas.
The Banshee.
There you go.
And then 16 to 18 meter range. Atlas tops out around 12. Most mechs average 10. Lights are between 8. Then kind of every next kind of class up, they go up about a meter.
Yep, that seems about right. And each class they go up, they also
go up 10 tons.
Yeah.
Yeah. In MechWarrior 5, I do my favorite mech is the Highlander. It's probably my favorite Innersphere mech. It's super cool, and it's also really old. It's like from like the Star League era.
So weird to build off that, I guess. I don't actually know if it's in lore anywhere other than in MechWarrior 2. But my favorite mech from that era is the Nova, which was the Nova is, or at the very least was portrayed in that game as being one of the arms outside of legs. So like one of the more squat ones, where the arms
and it's just covered in lasers.
Yeah. And
yeah, the in the clan timeline there's the Supernova, and you can put, I think, 24 small lasers on it in MechWarrior Online.
Oh yeah, it's some ridiculous. I think I could fit like a dozen or something medium lasers on it in Mech 2, which is of course what I did, and would just alpha strike with it, because alpha striking any single piece of armor with that much heat immediately guarantees that you're overheating or blowing that piece off, right? Because in Mech 2, massive critical damage would just blow a part of the armor completely off of the mech. So like you could just blow off an arm or a leg or whatever. And it was super gimmicky because you could take on mechs many times your size in the battle arena and absolutely crush them. And then you would immediately get your because I mean, like you shoot off an arm or a leg or something like that, and the battle efficiency of your enemy combatant goes down. So like they could send in a wave of 4 atlases, and as long as you could get off the first 4 alpha strikes before you got alpha strike by one of the atlases, you were golden. Like there is no counter to it in game, which is really silly, but
that is fair, but the bad part about alpha strike is your heat goes through the roof.
Oh yeah, you only get 4 shots. Like you get 4 shots and you have to flush your entire coolant system. And then the way that you do it is you disable legs or main guns, or if you can get a like lucky shot in the back of cockpit armor, that was your only hope, because if you didn't get it in those 4 shots, you basically had no coolant left and were stuck with 6 medium lasers that didn't do enough damage to really like take out anything bigger than the medium class mechs. Like anything larger than like a rifleman or an assassin, and you were basically toast. Like you might take out a Thor with it, but like if you were in the arena with like, I don't know, Marauder or a Mad Cat or something, like you're just done. You'd best just eject at that point in time.
Oh, that's fair. Like my current playthrough of MechWarrior 5, I don't quite have a Highlander yet, and I set it up as the Highlander 2C, which is the clan Highlander.
Yeah.
So I get rid of the autocannon and replace it for a Gauze rifle, though I do believe that by the time of the clan invasion, the Inner Sphere also had Gauze weapons and rudimentary, like the first era of their double heat sinks and stuff. So there's that. But the clans had what was called a Hyper Assault Gauze cannon, so it's a burst fire Gauze cannon.
Yeah.
Less range than a standard Gauze cannon, a little bit less damage, but higher rate of fire, and kind of more successive damage. Usually 10 rack of streak LRMs, because streak or die, and then usually a SRM streak 6-pack in the chest, and then the right arm or the left arm was usually a staggered trio of medium pulse lasers that were just like all slave to one button but would fire in sequence. So I could, by the time the third one fired, the first one was done recharging, so it was almost a continuous stream of medium laser fire.
Neat.
Yeah. Always, I have learned that in certain mech games, you always want to have 1 to 2, if not more, SRMs, because when little mechs get too close, it's like a shotgun.
Huh. See, my response to that always used to be to take sorry, painting tiny parts and probably not on stream. No, my response to having to deal with light mechs and elementals and stuff like that was always to just take somewhere on one of my hard points, have just whatever the minigun or chain gun or whatever it is, where you can fire 10,000 rounds, because burst fire mode on those was always ending to anything that was lightly armored.
Yeah, that's fair. Depending, Like, just because it's MechWarrior 5, so there's no clan mechs as of yet. And like, so machine guns are a little less important in the game. Like,
Oh yeah,
one of
no,
the mods
it was
does
always
add,
if I had intel on the mission that was like, hey, you're gonna be facing off against elementals or whatever light battle suits, and I'd be like, that's cool. I'm gonna just take something that rips through that, and I can hold the trigger down, and it's not going to accumulate a huge amount of heat and garbage for me. Which meant taking
I prefer
like
all lasers for that job.
Fair enough. I just
but I do usually like take a fairly healthy mix of armaments on my mechs. And if I can, I usually take an AMS system or two. So usually one is actually enough to suffice.
yeah, my tactics in MechWarrior have always been lackluster and very much based off of cheating and already knowing what the mission is going to be. So
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm pretty much like I've played MechWarrior 5 enough that I know exactly which each type of mission is. The new DLC actually is adding in infantry and battle suits.
Oh, neat. So that was always
it's advancing the timeline a bit as well, which will be cool. So that's going to bring in a couple, I think like 7 new mech designs and a bunch of new weapons. So it'll bring in actual official Gauze weapons, not just the ones from mods that I use. I will unfortunately have to run it without mods until
there's mod support again.
No, yeah, until the modding community just updates their mods to run with the DLC.
Fair enough.
There's not, and I'm hoping with Steam that the modding community for MechWarrior 5 will actually grow a little bit, because the mods that are on there I have most of the quality of life ones installed, and some of them kind of more realism simulation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, as I was saying, like the helmet and the blacking out when it overheats, and like my faceplate will kind of start fogging up a bit. The zoom becomes actually it doesn't zoom in on my screen, because with the helmet one doesn't work with the 3D HUD.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have if I use the free look, I can look away from my HUD and it fades away off to like the right or left peripheral, depending on which way I've turned my head, because you can see heat indicators and stuff with the cockpit improver.
Neat.
So you can actually like see the actual heat levels and stuff, not just on your HUD, but like the actual dials and stuff. And it makes the zoom, the center screen on your the mech console. So when you zoom in really far, you kind of actually have to free look down a little bit to look at what you're zoomed in on.
Fair enough. Again, painting things off camera, but what I'm doing right now, so you guys can see that I was coming back. I'm starting to now clean up some of the areas of our charming little man. Again, the point of what we're doing here, like the point that we're painting this stuff to, isn't to 100% reflectivity. Like, we're not going 100% with this stuff tonight. We will get 75-80% of the way there, and then once we know where they are going, because these guys are eventually going to be a part of they're going to be a part of my Armies on Parade armies, Lord. They're going to be in Armies on Parade. So in order to get there, obviously I want to be putting these in a big display base, and I want these guys to look like they are a part of the big display base. So a part of doing that is obviously generating light within the context of the environment that they're in. So we have universal highlight and shadow colors based off of what we're going to be doing inside of that place, but we don't know the final placement of light until such time as we actually have this model standing in the light condition it's going to be in. So we will continue to work on this guy and make sure that we have nice, strong transitions and lots of contrast built into his armor and gear and stuff. But for right now, we're going to take a little bit of a break. I'll probably be back in about 10 or so minutes. yeah, we'll call it there. So we'll be back at, let's say 5 to 8. So that's 13 huge old minutes. So we'll be back. Peace. Nope. Can you still hear me? Okay. I don't think that. Hang on 1 second. What is up, everybody? We are back. I am Steve Thomas, Choice Minis on your social media of choice. I am here with my good friend, my forever ally, and the man best known for his shorty shorts and love of all things Battletech. What's up, Adam Grimm?
I am just reading about various battle mechs. Right now in the 100-ton range.
Ooh. I had a nice little break there. I'm going to apologize in advance because both of my little Shiba Inus are they're having some fun. They might be fighting in the background. They love each other, but you know, part of loving somebody is also wanting to fight them constantly. That's how love works, right?
Yeah.
That's what love is. Like the overwhelming feeling that you want to jump at each other's face. I don't know, man. They're both puppies. Like they're both less than 2 years. Well, that's not entirely true. Our Artemis is over 2 years old. Apollo goes in tomorrow for his neutering surgery. So I'm gonna let them just duke it out. Have some fun tonight. Happy last day of having testicles, little man. I am interested to see whether or not it changes his personality at all. We'll see. He's already a pretty soft, sweet little boy, so we'll see what happens if he becomes even a softer boy. In the meantime, you guys can see that I am working on my we're working on some non-metallic metal gold. We are working right now on one of our this is actually a blocker from from the Blood Bowl's Dwarf Giants team. We are calling them the new Helmgard Giants because that is what I did. I decided that I was like, well, Helmgard is dead in Age of Sigmar. The old hold of Helmgard is no longer in the mortal realms, so it was eaten by a wog. Well, it was eaten by a dwarf horde. A destruction horde, actually. It was combined forces of destruction took it out. But I was like, well, of course, the forces of Azir and like the forces of Order aren't just going to let that happen. They're going to have their own new version of that town that they would totally make, right? So this is their, of course, sports team, because Blood Bowl is, of course, American football plus about 30% more murder. For those of you who've never played Blood Bowl, it's a fun little game. Like I enjoy it, so that is my glowing recommendation for Blood Bowl. I've actually never played an actual game. I've only ever played the console and PC game. I guess I've only ever played it on PC though. So to me, it's just a PC game. But yeah, turn-based combat PC game, sports game, because I don't know. I don't like real sports, but it's probably as close to real sports as I want to get. Because everybody is fictitious, and it's hilarious that you get to just, like, get rewarded, basically, for murder. Because murder is hilarious, right? Adam, this is where you're supposed to tell me that murder is not hilarious. Okay, you've taken too long on this, so now I have several other questions.
As a player
for
of
you.
D&D, murder can be hilarious.
Okay, kids, this is the time. We should say it out loud. Murder can be hilarious under the correct circumstances. If you're wondering about whether or not the murder that you're about to commit is going to be hilarious, ask your parents. Right? That's the responsible way of saying it, right? If you're going to commit murder, ask your parents first. If you're 13 years or under, ask your parents if you should be committing murder. I feel like we approach that subject like responsible adults.
We nailed that one.
Yep, good job, us. So now that we've condoned murder, we're just continuing to go around. Right now, I'm doing some of the like first issue. So we're going for scratchy, denty armor with this guy. So even though he is wearing nice gold bits all over his armor, we're definitely going for a more scratched up look. If you look at our test model, you can see that I did the gold a little bit lighter on this dude than what I'm going to do on our final model here. I want a little bit more depth to a little bit more contrast. So you can see I've started from a little bit darker place. We're still going to lighten up some of those blacks. There's still just a little bit too much black on our model, but we're working on it. We're going to get there. You don't have to worry about it. We got plenty of time. Plenty of time before the stream is over for us to have really captured what I was looking for in terms of the lighting conditions for our little dwarf here. So that's what I'm working on right now. So on our palette, just over here, our palette cam has turned off. We'll turn that back on for you because that seems like a thing that you guys might want to be able to see. Or not. You guys can tell me. Put it in chat if you don't care about the palette cam. Neat. We can figure something else out. There we go. There's a palette cam. So we're using these colors right now, just these ones right here. So down at the bottom here, we are using scale color Gobi Brown. We are using scale color Sahara Yellow, probably? Sahara Yellow, right? Yeah, it is Sahara Yellow. There we go. Oh, come on. Autofocus. Or don't. Never focus on anything ever again. Okay. Well, it is... Let's see if we can... There we go. Sahara Yellow by scale color. And then as our highlights right now, we're using Teneri Yellow, but our brightest highlights are going to be, we're going to be using white sand on this model as our brightest highlights, and we're going to be using Abyssal Blue as our absolute darkest blacks. So, well, not darkest blacks, as our universal shadow color. So you guys can see I haven't actually brought any Abyssal Blue into this model yet, and that is something that we will get to in a little bit here, because it doesn't on non-metallic metals. We really want to use the maximums of our contrast. This is really the time where you're allowed to just like bust out max contrast in every way. So we can go from pure white all the way through all of our colors to pure black. So even though this is what's on my palette right now, we started off the model today by using an undercoat of black, like it's just scale color black on this guy. And then we will actually travel all the way to white. We probably won't get to white tonight. I talked a little bit about this before the break, but the brightest brights and the darkest darks are things that we're going to incorporate more into the model once we have it in its final lighting conditions. So while right now we are doing a lot of the work on sort of the three, like if the range of color was expressed in a scale from 1 to 5, right now we're working basically working 3 to 5 right now. Now you'll notice that I'm using more than 5 colors. Cool. We can talk about that in a bit, but like what we're really building in tonight is we're building 2 to 5. We've already got the black on there. Our black we already know is our darkest color on this model. The 2 is going to be white sand, and we'll use a little bit of that tonight, but I really want to save a lot of our brightest color. The 2 plus, like 2 going to 1. We're going to save a lot of that stuff for the very ends of our model. Like we're going to save that until we know exactly what the lighting condition that this guy is going to be in is, all the rest of it. But in the meantime, we can put in a lot of the other colors. So that's what we're working on right now. So now that I've got a lot of our Sahara Yellow and our Teneri Yellow starting to work into this model, I'm coming back to refine some of the shapes because we want to make sure that there's good definition on the shapes that we need, and that we're starting to see some of the other shapes fade. Like, for example, you guys can see that the little like bronze or gold medallion that he's using for our chest armor, we can now see that there are more shapes. We can see that it actually is like a dwarven face kind of a deal going on there. We want to make sure that that still reads, even if we're at like a couple feet away, right? Like that is the sort of pop that we need from from a distance on this guy in order for it to read both as metallic and as having, you know, proper shapes and whatnot. Can we leave some of the I'm going to be leaving some of the black that's on there. Obviously, I want the black, but I also talked about our universal shadow color, like using abyssal blue. And how do we incorporate that when we've already got the darkest possible color on this model, right? Like, I'm not going to go any deeper into the depths of darkness than black. So how am I going to incorporate that shadow color, right? Pretty easy. When we get to that part of the model, like when we get to that part of rendering light on this guy, what we're actually going to be doing is we'll come back with the abyssal blue, and we'll paint down into the shadows with it, but we won't take over the entire shadow at any point in time. So it's probably going to be easier to explain that when these guys are actually going into that step, but just know that we will be playing more into the shadows as time goes by. So we won't necessarily finish shadows and stuff tonight. We'll get pretty close on highlights as we continue to work our way around the model, but we will be going back to our Gobi brown, and I'll probably be doing a combination of Gobi brown and black in certain places just to really clean up some of those shadows and really work more and more contrast into the model. I say contrast, and I never know how much. I mean, most of the people who watch the stream aren't necessarily painters. They're just really cool fans who want to support and hang out while we hobby. But I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about contrast while we're here. There are different dimensions to contrast. And what contrast is the difference between one of those dimensions and the other. When I say dimensions, color is basically made of three different components. It is made of hue, it is made of saturation, and it is made of lumosity. So when I'm talking about hue, what am I talking about? Hue is essentially, like, without a better, simpler word for it, it's color. It is the color of things. And there are certain colors that contrast one another. If you've ever heard somebody say, oh, that clashes, those are two colors whose hues do not align particularly well, at least according to most human sensibilities. Also, this is some sort of chiptune of a Christmas song that's playing. I don't know if... Adam, can you hear that on stream? It is playing like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a chiptune. So, neat.
It kind of goes in and out for me.
Fair enough. We will blast that out so that everybody can enjoy the terror and awfulness that is the background music that I'm currently listening to. I could skip it, but I'm not going to. I feel like we should all be in this together. Okay, so back to contrast. So colors that clash don't necessarily contrast. Colors that clash are also sometimes just clashy for other reasons. There's like a lot to do with cultural heritage and stuff like that that makes it so certain people see colors as contrasting or as clashy. At any rate, contrast is it's a color wheel concept. So I don't know if anybody's how familiar you guys are with the color wheel, but there are certain. So there's the three primary colors, which is yellow, red, and blue. If you mix those colors together, so if you mix yellow and blue together, you get green. If you mix yellow and orange, or yellow and red together, you get orange. If you mix blue and red together, you get purple. That is your secondary colors. Colors that are across each other on the color wheel typically are complementary. They're called split, or they're called losing all of my color theory right out of the side of my head right now. At any rate, colors that are across the color wheel from each other, those create good contrast. So things like red and green are perfectly contrasting colors. Like they are the highest amount of contrast. It's a little awkward that we're listening. Well, awkward or fortunate that we're listening to Christmas music, as red and green are at least normally culturally associated with things like Christmas. They make for very cool contrasts. There's lots of flavors of them, so you don't have to do like absolutely like the reddest red versus the greenest green. That is definitely Christmas colors when we think of like evergreen or pure green versus like, you know, purest red. that is like Christmas all over the place, but it's not necessarily the only combinations of those that can be considered contrasting. So that is one type of contrast. That is contrast of hue. We also have contrast of lumosity. So this is how much light is naturally given off by a hue. So when I say lumosity, and we look at our little model here, this is actually largely where we're working today. So these colors are all fairly close in hue. They shift slightly in hue. The goby is a little bit colder. It's got a little bit more blue/green in it. The Sahara Yellow is a little bit warmer. It's got more oranges and yellows and reds in it. Neat. So that is sort of our contrast here. Or sorry, our contrast here is sort of goes beyond that. These are very close yellows, right? But we can tell that one yellow is darker than the other. That is the contrast of lumosity. So if I go all the way down to black, that is 0 lumosity. If I go all the way to the purest white, that is 100% lumosity, or at least that's how I think about it. In between, we render colors. But if you go to like the extremes of either end, it always turns into perfect dark or perfect black or perfect light. Perfect white. That is what we're using right now on our armor plates, like on our non-metallic metals. We're using the contrast of lumosity in order to create the effect of metal, right? So we're using large shifts in how much light is given off, because that's what actual metal does. If we take, so we've got the cap of this micron pen. This is silver, obviously, but you guys can see both of my lights being perfectly cast back at a very, very bright white. And then everything else in my room is darker. So it is giving off a little bit of blue because the walls in here are blue. It's also giving off black because the surface that I paint against is black and all the rest of it. So when it is reflecting those colors, it is reflecting them perfectly, right? So we have perfect whites, we have perfect blacks over here on the side of the cylinder. That is all because of because of a contrast of lumosity. And that's what we're trying to replicate with this guy's armor, right? So we are going all the way from the darkest dark that we can do to the lightest light, because that is what effectively renders a metal surface. This is not a new technique. Metallized paint or mica paint or metallic paint in the miniature hobby is sort of an anathema. Like, it's not something that really outside of like airbrushing and like modeling exists. If you go and look at like Renaissance paintings or even like modern painting, when people are trying to render metallic surfaces, they don't use a metallic paint because you can't control where reflections are. You can't control how much light is bouncing off of a certain part, right? Because it relies on the environment to create reflections. Metallic paint has little flecks of not actually metal in it. It's mica, like it is mica dust that they put in it, which is a tiny, very, very shiny rock. In case anybody is wondering what exactly mica is, it's basically glass in rock form. At any rate, they put tiny ground up bits of rocks into the paint, and that makes metallic paints. So that is the second type of contrast that you can create. You can create contrast. We already talked about of hue. We talked about contrast of lumosity. Now let's talk about contrast of saturation. So this is, again, something that is hard to divorce one from the other in our hobby. Contrast of saturation is how much of a particular pigment of color shows up in a paint. So whenever you mix pure pigments together, it will produce another pure pigment or another purely pigmented color. So if I go back to our Christmas example, pure red plus pure blue or pure green in the case of Christmas, mixed together makes a brown color. If they are perfectly proportioned to one another in perfect amounts, they will create brown. If we add any other color than perfect pigments, so if our red is, let's say, like a purpley red instead of being like a pure red, so I've got this Coke can here that's a very, very pure red. If instead it was more of a purpley red, so we can talk about our deep red here, that color when mixed together with our same pure green, is going to, a certain part of it is going to cancel into black and white because it is a different hue, and that's the way that pigment addition works. I have a bigger, longer explanation about the math of how that exactly works, but just trust me, a certain part of the color doesn't turn into a pure, or doesn't mix together to create a pure pigment. It turns into a gray color. Whether the gray is lighter or darker, but it turns into a gray color. That gray color, the more of that gray color that ends up in our paint, the closer or the further we get from having saturation. So you can take a look at our little model here. Parts of our model that have high saturation are sort of these more aquamarine colors in the armor right here, right? So if we're looking right here, or our, you know, like our midtones for the gold are very saturated colors. Like they've got lots of yellow and orange tones in them, right? Or in the case of our aqua here, it's got lots of blue and lots of green tones into it. As we get more towards light surfaces, so you can see over here with where I put the highlight on, the slash highlights to really accentuate the sharp corner on its armor, that has a lot less saturation, though it's basically as bright. Like it has about the same lumosity as this side. It has about the same, it has about the same lumosity as this side. It has about the same hue. Like it is conceivably still a bluish green. It's just that it has no saturation to it. This is a very, very close to white color. So the white that is, or the gray that is inside of it, has taken over the other color that's in this pigment and turned it basically to white. So though these are basically the same brightness, they have the same hue, this one has way less saturation of that color in it. So it's come closer and closer to white. And we read that as being a contrast, right? So again, the three modes of contrast that we can create on a model. I don't know why I keep trying to put my fingers on stream. The three modes that we have to create contrast: hue, lumosity, saturation. Those are the three. That is my big long tale about saturation and whatnot. Adam, did you die of boredom during all that?
No, I was reading about Battle.net.
That does not surprise me in the least.
You know what time it is, Steve?
Oh, do I ever. It is time for a contest of champions.
Should we go over
Yeah, we'll go over the rules here as soon as the intro is done being an intro. All right, so welcome to a contest of champions. The rules of this segment are each one of us, Adam and I, nominate a champion from any place or time in history or fiction, and they protect our honor. How do they defend that honor? Well, audience, that is up to you. In the comments, write what you think would be the ultimate field of honor upon which mine and Adam's champions will face off to do battle. Now, there are a couple of additional rules. Whichever champion wins goes on to the next week. Whoever loses gets replaced by a new champion chosen by the loser. This is Pokemon rules, so our dudes don't come out and spend 20 minutes freaking out because Gandalf has suddenly found himself in the Temple of Doom. They just come out and they're ready to do whatever is commanded by us, their puppet masters. Let's spin the giant wheel and see what contests our champions will be facing off in this week.
Introduce your champion first.
Oh no, I will introduce them after. Round the world in 180 days. So our champions are challenged to go around the world in the 18th or the end of the 19th century. End of the 18th century, 1873. So that is the end of the 19th century. They have to go around the world, basically the mocking of Jules Verne's famous Round the World in 80 Days. Adam, do you want to talk about our reigning champion?
Sure. You know, it is Jack Black, Jables, from the Pick of Destiny. Oddly enough, has beat two of Steve's champions.
Yeah, so
far the record is 2 straight wins. No one has continued on after 2 so far, so maybe Jables will be the first one, or maybe he will fall.
Yeah, so he beat Captain Jean-Luc Picard at an open mic night and embarrassed Johnny the Dickhead Silverhand at getting the idol out of the temple from the start of Raiders of the Lost Ark. He is in a position to become our first 3-time champion. You are absolutely correct. And of course, when somebody becomes the champion 3 times in a row, they immediately go into the Hall of Champions, where they are retired until we have enough people in the Hall of Champions for us to actually have Halls of Champions battles. Yeah, sounds good. Now we come to this week's challenger. Competing in the arena of Around the World in 80 Days, we introduce the drummer for the greatest grunge band of all time, the nicest man in all of music, the dude who will rock you all night long. Frontman for Them Crooked Vultures and every character in the Learn to Fly music video, except for the 2 dudes. It's David Grohl. All right, buddy. So we have to have David Grohl, Jack Black. They are starting off in London. It's 1873. I feel so bad for Dave. Dave's gonna be like, why does my cell phone not work? We are in Jack the Ripper, London, and we have to get around the world in 80 as fast as possible. Do you want to open up this week, or should I start us off with how Dave Grohl is going to get out of London?
I think you and Dave can start it off this time.
All right. Well, first of all, David Grohl is going to go and get himself as much coffee as he can find. He's going to use some a combination of whatever currency is on him, and just being a really super awesome nice guy to con his way into some coffee, because we need fresh pots. At that point, I believe Dave Grohl is going to try and board some form of steamship for London. I feel like that is probably the best bet, and he is definitely gonna demonstrate demonstrate his prowess and his deserving nature for being a member of a crew, probably by singing Everlong to the crew and being like, he's just gonna sing them Everlong. He's gonna whip his acoustic off his back and be like, yo, I know that you don't know what an acoustic guitar even is, but like, check this out. And people's minds will be absolutely blown. And he will rock hard the entire way across the channel, all the way to Brittany. He will ride the entire Thames from London to Brittany aboard a steamship.
Hey.
How's Jables getting out of London?
So, Jables, as a 2-time champion, bearer of the Bong of Destiny, he's not, not the challenge he was expecting, but he's gonna rock it. And being kind of, the charismatic, chubby guy he is, he's basically gonna, like, almost Oliver Twist it a little bit. And just, like, ask people, like, oh, what's the quickest way out of the city? And, get directions to the docks and pull a similar move as Dave, but a little bit further.
Oh, how's he going further?
He is booking passage on a steamship from London to Constantinople.
Ooh, all right. You gonna go around, eh? You gonna take the trip through the Straits of Gibraltar?
Yep.
Are you reading Around the World in 80 Days, the Wikipedia right now?
No, I'm not. I'm just making that up. I thought it sounded cool.
All right.
With passage, he's gonna play a few ditties on the way.
All right. We are in a very similar position. So as you are steaming slowly towards Constantinople, I am going to board the rail in Brittany. And we are going to be traveling south towards Italy. I feel like once we've disembarked upon off the French coast, I feel like there is probably trains that could get me at least to the Alps, like very least to the Swiss Alps.
Yeah, you'd probably go to from Brittany. You'd probably go to Paris, and then from there, get on a train. Yeah, probably like through the Alps, where you probably have to get on another train to get through the Alps. I imagine.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they had the one long continuous line yet.
So we're gonna do a little bit of sleuthing here. So I'm gonna go onto Google Maps. You should also go onto Google Maps. Oops. Maps.google.com. All right. What is the average speed of a steamship?
Open up another Google tab.
Okay. In Europe, average cruising speed for a steam locomotive on rails is approximately 60 kilometers or 35 to 60 miles an hour. And I'm going to split it down the middle. We'll say it's 47. I need to go from Brittany, France, and then we are going to go directions. Let's go to Paris. No, not Paris Auto Repairs. Paris, France. Yeah. Why don't you just automatically know that? Okay, so the overall distance is about 250 kilometers there. All right. Oh, I guess I would board in Brittany. I would probably board at Calais, probably. So let's make sure that it's Calais instead of Brittany. Okay. And then from there, so yeah, I'm going to head down towards Venice. Like that is my overall goal right now, is to make it to Venice. And then from Venice, I assume that we are in agreement that we can play for our supper, right? Because we are two rock gods at this point in time. I feel like we can put together a mean madrigal to pay for our passage, right? That's right now. I think that the main challenge that is facing both Dave Grohl and Jack Black at this point in time is who can plan a route that gets us where we need to go as fast as possible on the available infrastructure of the time, right?
Yeah.
Because once I make it to Venice, we're going to Budapest, and then from Budapest, I'm probably going to Kiev. It wasn't called Kiev at that point in time, but whatever it was actually called in ye olde days, the capital of Ukraine.
Okay, yeah, I know. I get kind of where you're
going. Google Maps is warning me that I am going to be crossing an international border that is currently under dispute. I mean, I could go further south into like Odessa and stuff, but that seems, or like even worse, go like to Sevastopol, which I think is under Russian occupation right now. So like that seems like a bad idea. Okay, so your overwater trip to Istanbul, do you know approximately how far that is?
just doing that right now. Let's see.
Okay, because I feel like we're at approximately the same longitude at this point, though I'm latitudinally much further north than you are.
Yeah.
And now we come to the hard part, is getting through the Middle East in this period of time and getting to India.
It is well, straight across it's just under 2,000 miles.
Yeah, but you got to go all the way around the Straits of Gibraltar, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go London to
I mean, if you do like London to Lisbon to Gibraltar. To Gibraltar, to either Algiers or Palermo, and then probably to Athens and then Istanbul, and that'd give you, I mean, it's...
So, it is... Don't give me that full distance.
You can also do it in Google Earth. It might be a little easier.
Yeah, that's, I think, gonna be better, because it's giving me, like, distances for, like, flights and driving, but not...
See, this is going to be the ridiculous part of all this, is trying to figure out how to do it all in Google Maps. That's why I'm sort of trying to stick to Tehran, or sorry, to the overland route. I know what my route is, but we need to come up, both of us need to come up with basically, because we are so similar, right? Because Jack Black in The Pick of Destiny is basically Dave Grohl if Dave Grohl was fatter. Yeah? We can agree to that?
Yeah.
I feel like we need to plan out our route and figure out which one of us has the shorter route that can average faster. I am looking up old railways that existed that the Brits put in places to see if I can make that happen a little faster. Because I need them railways. As soon as I have to go overland by person power or horse or car, gets much, much worse, friend. Much, much worse.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
All right. So far I have made it from my quest is going from Calais, London to Calais to Paris to Venice to Budapest to Kiev to Tbilisi to Tehran to Karachi to Dhaka, and then I gotta make it. Yeah. So if I need to make it over Myanmar and to Hanoi, basically. Let's see if there's, I mean, actually, you know what I can do? From Dhaka, I can take a boat. And that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't think there's an overland route that goes through the Himalayas at that point in time. It doesn't appear that there is, according to the map that I'm looking at right now. There is one now, like there are roads that'll go that way. But back in ye olde days, I have basically reached the end of the British installed rail system in the Indian subcontinent. So, to the sea!
Okay.
Apparently, there is no legal way for me to travel from Tbilisi to Tehran. Huh. I'm going to say that...
I'm trying to get distance to Lisbon or Gibraltar by boat.
Do we want to re-roll this one? Is this a lame challenge?
It's tricky.
All right. Let's re-roll the challenge. Let's see if we can come up with something a little bit different. I thought that this would be more fun than it currently is. So far, it seems to be a lot of us Googling things on Google Maps and being relatively silent. So let's re-roll the challenge. Let us see what the wheel doth show. Let's get rid of that one and let us spin the wheel. Oh, I forgot to save it. It might come up. It came up again. Okay, let's save and let's spin that wheel one more time. Okay, so Jack Black and Dave Grohl find themselves floating in a timeless void. There is no up or down. There is inexplicably light that illuminates our two contestants, but otherwise they're just floating in a neutral buoyancy void. And they are to fight to the death. I feel like that's not much of a contest. Because you know what Dave Grohl is going to do, right? Right?
What's he gonna do?
Drink a pot of coffee and punch you in the balls until you're dead. I mean, he knows he's here to fight to the death. I mean, Dave Grohl himself would never kill a man, especially not Jack Black, who is his friend. But like, Dave Grohl, in the purposes of the Contest of Champions, bloodthirsty killer.
Okay.
So he's coming in for the groin punch, the caffeine-powered groin punch.
I'm gonna block that caffeine-powered groin punch with just the hardest boner of all time. That is so hard because it is able to force a man of Jack Black's size off the ground in a cock push-up.
That is
Block.
That is an impressively hard on.
I cock blocked you.
Wow. That is the first instance of a literal cock block in all of history. All right. Shrugging off the pain to his arm from what he can only assume is the most turgid of penises that has ever existed. Ooh, what do I come back with, guys? I know. Dave Grohl is going to learn to fly. He's going to jump kick you to the face. At this point, I am going to base all of the rest of his combat moves off of Foo Fighters and probably Dem Cooked Vultures song titles, just in case you're wondering.
Okay. Because he's flying at me, I'm gonna use Jables is gonna use some mind bullets to shoot him down out that black sky.
Does he actually have mind bullets though?
Well, I mean, you're basing your powers off of Dave Grohl's powers off of songs. So
but I've also seen Dave Grohl jump kick. So, like, Dave Grohl has jump kicked in real life now. I have watched Dave Grohl jump kick from like the third row. It was awesome. Dude rocks hard for like 3 hours straight. If you ever get a chance, go to a Dem Crooked Vultures or Foo Fighter show. They're
love the Foo Fighter show.
Foo Fighter shows are magical. They are just three straight. The last time I went to a Foo Fighter show, there wasn't even no, that's not true. There was an opener, and the opener played for like 45 minutes, and then Dave Grohl came out with the Foo Fighters, and they rocked for like 3 straight hours. They even played like Dem Crooked Vultures songs. It was great. I enjoy that band so much. But all that to say, I have actually seen him jump kick Steph in real life while he was playing guitar, because this man rocks.
He does rock. I'm not debating that.
So it may not be like a karate kick, but like still jump kick.
Like, did he just like jump and do like the 2 feet kick to the chest kind of thing?
Oh yeah, like if it was like, if you were to like analogize it, it's like the Kirk chop, except for he just like drop kicks him. Like he's just jumping up both feet, trying like right for the chest, right for the chestal area. I missed an entire bit of gold here, buddy, and I just noticed it. Like a big dangly bit on his beard that I was like, oh, that is supposed to be gold. Beard gather thing? Yeah.
Beard beads?
Yeah. Beard deeds.
Beards. Beard. I can't say
bees?
Beads combined into one word.
Bees? Sorry, I love Arrested Development.
It's bees? It's just bees now. It's all, it's just bees.
Yep.
So you're saying I can't use mind bullets from Wonder Boy as a power?
I don't feel like he at any point in time in the Pick of Destiny, which is where he is right now, right? You're playing Jack Black from the Pick of Destiny. He at no point in time demonstrates the ability to use telekinesis, Kyle.
He does not use telekinesis. He just uses the power of his rock.
Yeah. I mean, it literally is the power of his rock that saves the day most of the time. That and being really high at one point in time. That also helps to save the day. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps sometimes. Okay. So, How can I dodge it? You know, I'm gonna take the kick, but roll back, roll with the kick, I guess.
Yeah, roll with the kicks. Okay, I got you.
Use my Rockstar training to recover into a backwards power slide.
Ooh,
new move.
New move. That is a new move, and I am impressed by it.
And whip none other than Monster Mash off my back.
Okay.
And challenge you to a rock off.
Dave Grohl isn't falling for any of that bullshit. Unless, of course, I can turn into Beelzebub, and even then, I'm not falling for that. Dave Grohl, kill him. At this point in time, as you're challenging him to a rock off, while Dave Grohl is extremely impressed by the kick recovery into reverse power slide rock off challenge, he is here for murder. And murder we shall. I'm sorry, Dave Grohl. If you ever see this for some reason, I don't think you would actually do this to Jack Black or to any human being. But for the purposes of this, Dave Grohl is going to come in, just rip Monster Mash out of your hands, beat you with it, like you were a man in a Trident commercial.
Okay. Being beaten with, his childhood guitar, he can get a little mad.
That's fair.
He's gonna pull up the Bong of Destiny, and it's a bong made from a demon's horn, and he's just gonna grab it and just start punching the horn point into David Grohl's stomach.
Ooh, it is.
You are now bleeding profusely from your. You have multiple stomach puncture wounds in your stomach.
Oh yeah, no, there's no way that David Grohl doesn't end up just full of demon holes. That's what we're gonna call it. We're gonna call them demon holes.
For like a little cherry on top. Last one, right into the jewel.
Oh boy, that is difficult but not impossible to recover from. You know why? Dave Grohl, having been stabbed several times, I don't know where to go from here. I feel like Dave Grohl has lost it.
Like you've got a minute and a half to live.
Yeah, fine. I got a minute and a half to live. You know what Dave Grohl is? Dave Grohl is a fucking drummer. You know how fast he can move his arms? Real fast. He's gonna spend as you're plunging your demon horn into my private bits or into David's private bits. I'm sorry for swearing earlier. He's just gonna go to town. I mean, you're within melee range at this point in time. There's no point in being fancy. He's just gonna mash your face. You got like bruises and broken limbs from being smashed with a guitar, because trust me, being smashed with a guitar is nothing like what you would hope it would be like. You'd hope it'd be like
an acoustic guitar, though.
Totally fair. It's not what you think it'd be like. You know that a guitar neck is basically a baseball bat, right?
Edges are, yeah. I have been smacked by both, and a kendo stick.
Yeah, not fun. Not recommended.
Absolutely not fun.
Yeah, not recommended. Would not do again. 0 to 5 stars. At any rate, you're within arm's reach. So Dave Grohl pulls out a pair of not just any sticks, but like big ol' like giant chunky sticks, like rock sticks that you use. Like these are like I forget how they do gauge for drumsticks. You'd think I'd remember because I used to sell them. At any rate, he pulls out like giant, massive, like black metal, heavy, thick sticks and just starts going to town. Just hundreds and hundreds of hits per minute. Rendering whatever surface that he's hitting with these drumsticks just into a bloody pulp. And they keep going because they're made out of like American white oak from like 1,000 years. At any rate.
Okay, so if the 100 hits a minute and you got a minute and a half to live, so it's 150 hits. And that time, like, Jables is still getting his stab on with that Bong of Destiny.
I feel like you've got like some pretty major injuries yourself at this point in time. Like we are not Neither men are healthy at this point in time.
I mean, I like they're not. It's not like he's like going like super stab happy. It's like, you know, it's the slow, like labored, like putting all of his muscle in just to sink it in. This point, like using all of his what he's got left to like just, you know, just keep pushing it in.
Oh my god, I should have ran away. If I just ran through the void to get away from you, would eventually have had to like come and face me, and running would have left you winded.
Yeah.
God, I'm dumb. I'm even a fat dude, and I don't know how did I not think of just running away?
I mean, yeah, I was like, I didn't think of the wrong destiny until you're like, David's here to kill. I was like, all right. Like, oh wait, I have a sharp object.
You do have a demon's horn. You know what? I'm gonna tap out early on this one. I feel like Dave Grohl goes down. I don't feel like. I feel like with several stab wounds and the agony of like having demon holes being put in him, or having been put in him,
having your dick stabbed off.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like does not seem like, pleasant.
You would bleed out, but you might die from shock first.
Outfox again.
Yeah, we have our very first Hall of Famer.
Yeah, this is our first entry into the Hall of Champions. So after the fight concludes, of course, Dave Grohl is immediately.
Dave Grohl is dying though.
Oh yeah,
Dave cradles him and just freaking cries.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I think that both of them would be absolutely devastated that it happened. And then probably curse the gods who forced them to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they both hate us now.
I fully expect a call from their lawyers in the morning.
I don't even know if they'll wait until morning. I'm just glad that our channel is small so that neither of them have to ever hear about this. We could definitely keep this between ourselves. And Dave Grohl and Jack Black never have a fight, guys. Real men don't need to fight in a void. This is just a theoretical
what ifsies.
What ifsies. An oopsie what ifsie. Right?
Yeah.
A weird...
I guess I have to pick a new champion now too, because he's retired.
Yeah, he has traveled into the he's ascended, basically. Like he takes his final hit from the like Dave Grohl blood flavored bong of destiny as he like ascends, leaving Kyle behind, of course. He ascends into the Hall of Champions, leaving his best friend to wallow. I mean, now, to be fair, I feel like JB would actually do that most of the time in real life because he doesn't really see the value of Kyle's friendship, which is harsh. I mean, in real life he does, but in like Jack Black, the character, Jack Black, the guy from Pick of Destiny, Jack Black, the man from the many successful albums. That character does not know Kyle Gass's true value and tries to screw him over constantly. In Two Kings, he doesn't want two kings. He wants one king and a kick-ass duke, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. So yeah, Jables, bruised, bloodied, broken, heartbroken.
Cockbroken too.
In the hall.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Heartbroken,
definitely
and
cockbroken.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't want to take. No matter how hard I could get, I don't want to take a full force punch to the scrotes and bloats, punch, if you know what I mean.
That's a one-time block.
Oh yeah, that is not something that you are doing multiple times per fight. That's for
no, like that's a one fight block.
Oh yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I am gonna have it's been a while since I had to pick a champion, so this might be tricky. And I guess it's gonna be two brand new champions then.
Yeah. So next week we will return.
David Grohl died.
Yeah, David Grohl definitely died. If you guys have any suggestions for content,
he did not actually die.
No, this is not a report on actual reality. This is us having a made-up person fight in our heads, involving those who we would want defending our honor. I'm so sorry I didn't do a better job of Pokemon piloting David Grohl. I'm sorry, David Grohl.
Like, I mean, the 180 days challenge would be good. It was not right for these two.
Yeah, we'll put it.
We also had to figure out a way we're gonna do that.
Oh yeah, no, we need some better rules there. But if you guys have any suggestions for contests that our potential champions could compete in, we are always open to that sort of thing. You can always go and email me. You can email me at choiceminis@gmail.com. You can go onto our website. Actually, you can go to choiceminis.ca or choiceminis.com. You can check out some of the stuff that we work on. I am starting to put up more of the articles about how and why I'm painting, some of the documentation for stuff that I do off stream as well. So you guys can check that out there. You can also check out our merch. So our merch is available on if you go into the link in the description, you can see it there. Also down in the description are all of the news stories we covered today. So if you'd like to go and get yourself an everlasting wet palette, or if there is something, or the Zodiacs from Scale 75, you can always go and check that stuff out on Kickstarter through the links in the description. There are also links in there to all the items that I use. So even models, paintbrushes, everything. So if you want to get yourself started in the hobby, obviously you guys can use the links in the description. Every little bit helps. You can also donate directly to us. You can follow us on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, Twitter. What am I missing? Reddit. That's pretty much it. I feel like that's all the social media that I have. I am Choice Minis everywhere, except for on Twitch, where I am Choice Minis with a Z, as we slowly work with the Twitch admins to recover Choice Minis with an S, which is just me again, but I'm bad at this and lost control of the account. Adam, where can people follow you, bud?
People can follow me on Instagram at beach_vacation_Mando and follow my lowish Mandalorian cosplay. I promise I'll post Mandalorian stuff on there soon. I'm actually working on stuff.
Ooh, working on stuff. Oh,
yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to attach the as on Tuesday when I detached the flip down light up see-through rangefinder from my Black Series Boba Fett prototype helmet. Then I want to put on my my Mando helmet. I got to figure out how I'm going to attach that and still be able to have it so I can change the battery.
Fair enough.
And then I have to decide if I'm going to pop off the other ear cap from the prototype helmet, or try and figure out how I can integrate this one with the ear caps I have for my current helmet.
Neat. So you can follow along Adam at _beach_vacation_Mando. Yeah, if you guys want to support us, the best thing you can do is leave a comment down below. You can like, subscribe, tell a friend about what we do, and please, I can promise you I am now 24 hours out from getting the vaccine. Please go get vaccinated. Do something about white supremacy. Hey, Adam, I love you so much.
Love you too, dude.
And I love all of the rest of you, probably about it. I love about 40% of you statistically as much as I love Adam. So know that I love you, but not as much as I love Adam. All right, everybody, have an excellent night. We'll catch you on Tuesday, May the 25th. We'll be back with Project Never Fallen. So we'll see you guys soon.
Never Fallen, is it not?
Yeah. It is
the last chapter of the Dark Angel.
Yeah, it is last chapter, volume 1 next week. So we'll catch you guys then.